This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Insurgents seize a port in gas-rich region in northern Mozambique. Alleged Boko Haram militants kill over a dozen in Nigeria's Borno state. And Egyptians vote to elect members of newly created Senate. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to you live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Viviers, and here with your business news is Rama.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. Nigeria's leading carrier, Air Peace, is set to recall pilots laid off during the COVID-19 pandemic's early stages. And after gold prices had a bit of a tumble after last week's historic rally, where do they go from here? We'll have the details on that and plenty more coming up in the course of the hour. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Hannah.
Thanks, Rama. We'll see you in a bit. We start the hour in Mozambique, where Islamic militants have captured a port in the town of Mocimboa da Praia. The port is close to natural gas projects estimated to be worth $60 billion. A local news site, Zitamar, says the port was seized on Tuesday after naval forces ran out of ammunition. Militants linked to ISIL have stepped up their attacks in the region this year. Since 2017, they've been launching attacks in the country's northmost region. Well, let's shift to Somalia, where 19 people have been killed following a gun battle inside a Mogadishu prison. 4 members of Somali security forces and 14 inmates are among the dead. It's reported that imprisoned al-Shabaab militants were able to access weapons before attacking correction officers. Several others were injured during the assault. The government says it will investigate the attack. Authorities have managed to arrest some of the fighters.
The prisoners tried to snatch a firearm from one of the guards in the kitchen and then shot dead another cop. They used the 2 guns to create chaos. Some were killed and several others were wounded, but the situation was put under control.
We're launching an internal investigation into the violence at Mogadishu Central Prison. We hope to bring the perpetrators of the violence before the law, mainly those who facilitated the access of firearms to the inmates. We will strengthen the security and well-being of inmates across all facilities in the country.
Meanwhile, the death toll from ongoing clashes between South Sudan security forces and armed civilians in the north-central Warab state has risen to at least 127. At least 32 more people have been injured, according to town's councillor James Mabior. The clashes erupted when soldiers of the South Sudan's People's Defense Force tried to disarm civilians. The disarmament of civilians is part of the peace agreement that was signed between South Sudanese President Salva Kiir and opposition leader Riek Machar in February. After many months of negotiations, President Kiir and Machar agreed to form a government of national unity in which both hold key leadership positions. So far, a partial unity government has been formed and state governors have been appointed, but parliament has yet to be reconstituted. For the latest on the ongoing clashes between South Sudan security forces and armed civilians, we're now joined by CGTN's Patrick Oyet. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. What is the latest on the clashes in the north-central Warab state, Patrick?
Hannah, a lot of issues are coming out from Warab state. Of course, it's difficult to talk about numbers. The police are saying that fighting has now stopped. The situation is calm. The army is saying that they withdrew from the village where fighting has been going on to ensure that the calm returns to the place. Of course, the people from the local area are saying that the whole village has been displaced. Children and women have run to a nearby village. The youth are still angry, and therefore the government here is saying that they are sending a team of investigators to go and find out exactly what has taken place. It's very difficult to talk about the numbers. The army here is saying it has lost 55 of its soldiers. And of course, from the local community, we are hearing that the death toll is more than 100, and it is expected to rise because so many people who are wounded are unable to access hospitals. One, because some of the medicines in those hospitals have been looted. Two is because they are fearing, of course, since they have had clashes with the government, they are fearing to go to government facilities. So lots of challenges still in that part of the country, Hannah.
Patrick, what are the main reasons for the clashes, and what are you hearing government is doing to calm the situation?
Yeah, the government is saying that the clashes have occurred because of a misunderstanding, but the local community in Warab State say that, of course, there were youth who were actually moving around the village, and the army stopped them, wanted to check whether they had weapons or not, and when they ran away, they refused to comply with what the army said. The army pursued them, arrested them. When the army apprehended them and took them to custody, some of their relatives went and wanted to remove them by force, and this is how clashes actually started. But this part of the country, Warab State, has been actually prone to conflict, to armed clashes between communities. One of the reasons is because, of course, arms are just in the hands of everyone you can imagine here in South Sudan. In fact, the Bureau for Small Arms Control says that in every household in South Sudan, there are arms. At least there is a minimum of one gun in every family. If you go to a family and don't find a gun, then that means that is not a South Sudanese family. And the guns even get more as you move to villages. So that is one of the challenges. The reason for so many guns in the hands of the people, of course, is because of long years of civil wars, beginning from 1983. The Sudanese government had its own militias. When this government came to South Sudan, of course, arms were not removed. And then several civil wars that have been going on, arms have gone into the hands of the civilians. And these people use guns for their livelihoods because most of them are cattle keepers. They move from one place to another during dry seasons. They want to protect their animals. They want to protect themselves. So removing guns from their hands needs a lot of civic education, needs a lot of community involvement, without which, if you go and say, we want to remove your guns, you are likely to face these kind of challenges that the government is now facing because they look at the guns as part of their livelihood.
Patrick,
Hannah,
thank you so much for joining us. Patrick Ayed joining us there from Juba, South Sudan. Meanwhile, in Sudan, at least 25 people have been killed and 90 others wounded in clashes between ethnic groups in a port city in the eastern part of the country. According to Central Doctors Committee, the fighting began on Sunday between members of the Bani, Arem, and Nuba ethnic groups in Port Sudan, a key international trade harbor on the Red Sea. The latest tensions between the two tribes date back to May 2019 in the eastern city of Gadaref, mainly over water and other resources. Local authorities in Port Sudan have responded to the latest bout of violence by placing the city under complete lockdown, prohibiting residents from leaving their homes. Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok has called on political parties in eastern Sudan to cooperate with local authorities to protect security and social peace in that country. Well, in Nigeria, several attacks by suspected members of militant group Boko Haram have claimed the lives of more than a dozen farmers and herders. The attacks took place in Borno State, which is located in Nigeria's northeast. The latest outbreak of violence comes despite the government's reassurance to Nigerians that it is intensifying its efforts to combat the militants. Reporting from the country's capital, Abuja, here is Philly Haza.
At least 13 people from Pusiwa and Koleram communities in the Magumeri local government area of Borno State have been confirmed dead so far. That's according to the acting secretary of the council, Malam Wali. Wali said the attack, which took place on Monday, also saw nearly 20 people injured, while the insurgents stole hundreds of cattle belonging to people who live there. Now, according to reports, hundreds of displaced persons from both communities were forced to take refuge at Magumeri. That's a nearby town which is 40 kilometers from the state capital. Local authorities are now working with security agencies to restore normalcy in the affected communities, and the injured are being treated at a government hospital. Now, the attack came on the same day President Muhammadu Buhari reiterated his commitment to end the more than a decade-long war against insurgency in the region. Nearly 30,000 lives have been lost and more than 2 million more people have been displaced as a result of Boko Haram attacks in the region. Now, President Buhari says the military is expecting a new delivery of weapons and aircraft from China, Jordan and the United States in a bid to strengthen its fight against terrorism. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
Well, Senate elections in Egypt take place this week. 762 candidates are competing for 200 seats. The Senate was reinstated by constitutional amendments in 2019. It's responsible for overseeing the performance of Parliament. It also reviews and ratifies the new laws passed by Parliament, as well as any economic and political deals signed by the Egyptian government with other countries. Here's CGTN's Yasser Hakim with more.
Egyptians have gone to the polls for the second and final day of voting.
With its experienced members, the Senate is important because it bears the responsibility of studying all laws and ensuring Parliament is well committed.
The final count of voters has not yet been released, but 63 million people are eligible to vote. Egypt had 2 houses since 1813, but the Senate was dissolved after the January 2011 uprising.
They saw that there was no need for 2 houses because it incurred a lot of unnecessary expenses, especially at the Consultancy Council only.
It had been reinstated by the 2019 constitutional amendments, and as the elections went on, streets were filled with billboards of candidates eager to be one of the 300 members of the council. According to Egyptian law, 200 candidates are voted in and 100 others are appointed by the president. The voting process this year has been influenced by the coronavirus pandemic.
They installed 2 sanitized gates in the entrance. There is social distancing in the queues and you are given sanitizers and masks as you go in the polling station.
The election results are expected on the 19th of August. Meanwhile, the Senate will convene for 5 years. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
And now for news from outside the continent, aid continues to arrive in the Lebanese capital. The United Nations continues its assessment of Beirut's emergency needs. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas is in Beirut to offer Berlin support. His visit follows the trips of Egyptian and Jordanian foreign ministers to Lebanon's President Michel Aoun. The Lebanese government resigned on Monday, but the president has asked the government to stay in a caretaker capacity until a new cabinet is formed. The United Nations has called for the formation of a government as soon as possible. Our correspondent Stephanie Freed has more from Beirut.
In terms of recovery, of course, there's been aid that's been pouring in from all over the world, and that's everything from money aid to food aid to oil to teams of, even we saw on the ground, we just came from the area which is the key critical area of Beirut that was hit by this blast. Surveillance teams who were surveying the damage and estimating the costs, looking at rebuilding. We're seeing volunteers, a huge number of volunteers, dozens of teams from all over the world moving around, bringing food to people, bringing water to people, cleaning up the streets, administering medical aid on the streets. So the aid continues to pour in, and that ties into Heiko Maas's visit, the German foreign minister. He has been very critical of the Lebanese government, has said that it's been critical of the fact that there were chemicals stored in the port that led to the explosion. He has also been critical of the resignation, the government's handling in general of the current atmosphere in the country. Of course, before the blast, Lebanon was in a crisis situation economically, politically, mass protests. Those have only heightened now in the aftermath of this blast. More protests. The protesters are demanding, beyond the fact that the government resigned, that's not what the protesters said they want. They want to see a complete overhaul of the governing system in Lebanon.
Well, now to southwest China's Sichuan province, where torrential rains have left 6 people dead and 5 missing. Some 100,000 people have been affected. In the city of Guanggan, firefighters exhausted all efforts to rescue residents in a compound that was hit by sudden flooding.
The Guanghan Fire Department may not be the largest in the province, but since Tuesday afternoon, they've dispatched almost all their firefighters. This is the only street the rescue team can use to access the compound. On the other end, hundreds are waiting to be evacuated. But rescue work was slowed down at one point on Wednesday morning because of this, a rapid torrent that suddenly appeared in the middle of the street, toppling a lifeboat with rescuers in it. After a few failed attempts to break through it, rescue workers brought in an unusual tool: bulldozers.
Although it seems like a desperate move, it's proven very efficient. The bulldozers are the only vehicle heavy enough to travel through. Based on the current capacity, we think the rescue work could continue for another few hours. There are also people in need of medical assistance trapped inside, so we can't tell at the moment.
Anyone too frail to be transported by bulldozers are evacuated in small groups by professional scuba diving rescuers, also known as frogmen.
Our apartment is on the low level. We don't have electricity or clean water, and we need them for the baby. We will be staying at a relative's house tonight.
We are very grateful for the timely evacuation. I'm a teacher at an art summer camp nearby. These are our students. I'll hand my students safely to their parents.
Shop owners and centers set up to dispatch packages are transferring the stock to dry places.
I can't sell wet products to customers, right? So I'm putting the drugs on higher shelves, and I need to finish that before water comes in. I have a pig farm somewhere else, and it's been flooded.
My colleagues and I worked until 3 o'clock in the morning to put these wooden pads underneath the shelves as a temporary precaution. There are about 1,000 packages here. I'm contacting headquarters about how to move them out of this area.
The city of Guanghan has issued a code red rainstorm alert, the highest level of warning, for the 4th time in 24 hours. China's meteorological authorities warn of more heavy downpours and possible geological disasters in the coming week. 麦克，广汉，四川 Province.
Time for us to take a short break. More news when we return.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca. Among the crowds in Cairo.
Who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile. Along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
The World Health Organization says the Democratic Republic of Congo has recorded a reduction in COVID-19 cases over the past 2 months, but warned the public against getting complacent. The country recorded a drop of nearly 3,000 monthly cases between June and July. The reduction in cases comes at a time when infections across the African continent have been increasing, with over 1 million cases reported. CGTN's Chris Ochamringa has that report from Kinshasa.
COVID-19 cases have increased in African countries over the past 4 months. According to the WHO, confirmed cases have more than doubled in July amid a shortage of testing kits and poor access to data. But health officials in the Democratic Republic of Congo have recorded a drop in the number of cases since June this year.
COVID-19 in DRC is decreasing since around more than 1 month. Yes, for example, in June, there were a total of 4,036 cases, but in July, we recorded just 1,800 cases in DRC. the situation is decreasing, but you have to analyze it very well to know if it is in the whole country or if it is only in Kinshasa. You have also to analyze it in terms of the number of tests.
The DRC capital, Kinshasa, is the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak, with more than 7,000 cases. The pandemic has strained the country's overburdened healthcare system that's grappling with other infectious diseases like Ebola, measles, and cholera. A team of WHO health officials is supporting the DRC government tackle COVID-19 in the capital.
The COVID-19 started when we were still fighting against Ebola in the east of the country. We transferred some of our experts from North Kivu to Kinshasa to help us to fight against COVID-19.
The global health body says it has also increased its support to African countries which requested assistance in dealing with the pandemic.
We are continuing to work with local authorities to expand public health capacities, including more than 30 countries that have decentralized lab or laboratory testing capacities. As I said, countries are opening up borders, and there are challenges in detecting and managing imported cases and sustaining the intensity of these public health measures as economic activities resume.
Congolese authorities lifted some of the COVID-19 restrictions across the country last month. Airports and places of worship are expected to reopen on August 15th.
The DRC government has underscored the need for the public to continue adhering to the COVID-19 measures despite the recent reduction in monthly cases. It has ordered the police to fine or arrest people who are not wearing masks in public. Chris Sochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Well, August 12th marks International Youth Day, designated by the UN. The day looks to draw attention to the cultural and legal issues youth face. This year's theme is Youth Engagement for Global Action. It looks to explore how young people can engage on a local, national, and global level. This comes as the world continues to deal with a pandemic and a looming climate change crisis. Well, for more on that, we are joined by Raphael Abonyo, youth and public policy expert. He's based in Nairobi to discuss this important day. Thank you so much for joining us, Raphael. What are some of the challenges that young people are facing, particularly in this pandemic, when it comes, especially from a policy level, on what you research?
Thank you so much. Happy International Day, and thanks for having me. COVID-19 has affected young people in a myriad ways. One is young people's education has been disrupted. A majority of them are at home, and school was one of the safe spaces for many young people. We also have issues of access to basic services. Many young people are now not able to access basic services, whether we talk about food or shelter or clothing. Many young people are not able to access those basic needs. We also have the issue of mental health cases that are now on the rise, and also lack of safe spaces for many young people. But the most important and the biggest problem that many young people are now facing is the question of unemployment, especially in Africa. COVID-19 has increased the levels of unemployment in Africa, especially because many young people, working population of young people on the continent are actually in the informal sector. 80% of working youth population in Africa in the informal sector, which has been greatly disrupted. And so many young people have found themselves without a source of livelihood.
Thank you, Raphael. Raphael Abonyo, youth and public policy expert. He's based here in Nairobi, and he was speaking to us about International Youth Day. We'll move on to South Africa, where this year's International Youth Day is being commemorated amidst the ongoing pandemic, which is still affecting that country quite badly. This year's theme is Youth Engagement for Global Action. And in Cape Town, many of the city's youth are often seen as the ones actively engaging with family and community members about their concerns over safety during the outbreak. They do, however, draw mixed opinion on whether their voices are actually being heard when it comes to health and educational issues.
I don't think my voice is being heard on COVID-19 because nobody actually respects that they should wear a mask so that other people can be safe and so that they can be safe from the virus. But at school, my voice is being heard because everyone respects the rules and everything, but not at home.
The school's issue is the government should have listened to the children before they said that the children have to go to school, because you don't know if you're going to get the virus immediately. So it has to take long, very, very long till it can come.
The issues that we speak are not being resolved, as in schooling, the social distancing, and the cases keep going higher and higher. With COVID-19, due to the fact that people still don't wear masks, and they still don't social distance, and they still do not sanitize.
Good that they opened the schools so that we can learn more, because it's quite difficult to work at home. And also it's good because we have exams coming up, so at least we can study at school as well.
I think the leaders all listen to us because I did want to go back to school. And I also missed my friends a lot, and it's nice to see your friends, but you still have to wear a mask. People, they don't listen, they don't social distance, and they don't want to wear their mask. And they touch everything, and they don't sanitize their hands.
When it comes to COVID-19, I don't think people hear my voice, because I can't go to my friends, I can't learn, I can't go ice skating, and I miss all my friends.
New Zealand's looming general election could be delayed. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern warned Wednesday as the shock re-emergence of the coronavirus sent the country's largest city into lockdown and forced nursing homes nationwide to shut their doors. New Zealand's largest city, Auckland, has gone into another lockdown after 4 new coronavirus cases were reported in one family. Residents have been told to stay at home until Friday, while bars and businesses are closed. In the rest of New Zealand, people have been told to maintain physical distancing, and gatherings are limited to 100 people. The 4 infections are the first reported local transmissions in the country in over 100 days. Well, to Mauritius now, where volunteers are at the waterfront are speeding up efforts to prepare for a larger toxic oil spill as they fear the damaged ship that has been polluting the waters could break. The Japanese-owned ship ran aground at Point Disney in late July. CGTN's Jane Keogh tells us more.
For these volunteers, there's barely time to eat their midday meal. They are in a hurry, given the huge task ahead of them.
The ship is about to break, and we expected it could have broken up already last night, but it's still holding. But what we've learned is that it is still being held back by only the top metal plate that covers the surface of the ship, and that this is already fully cracked on the sides. And so there are still 600 tons of heavy fuel oil. Should the ship break, we would need to be prepared to absorb all this oil. So what's going to happen is that they are already right now over there where the ship is, installing buoys that surround the ship, so that should anything happen, they have some first level of protection there.
The team has also prepared more floating booms made of human hair and dried sugarcane leaves to soak up the oil from the Japanese bulk carrier. So far, about 1 million litres are estimated to have leaked into the Indian Ocean.
What's happening is we've ordered 3 VHF radios, and once we receive these, there are teams of several ships that are going to go out on the water there, and we are going to be identifying the spots of oil with drone and coordinate those ships to surround these spots and install those very buoys that you see all over the place around me.
The ship began leaking the oil last week after it struck a coral reef on Mauritius' southeast coast late last month. Activists say the spreading oil will seriously damage the country's marine wildlife. Dead eels and starfish have been spotted floating in the water, covered by the sticky black liquid. Concerns are also growing that the livelihoods of thousands of people will be adversely affected by the oil spill. The island relies heavily on fishing and tourism. It's already been affected by the coronavirus pandemic, which stopped international travel. The International Maritime Organization says it has joined efforts to help Mauritius tackle the oil spill by providing technical advice and coordinating the response. Jane Keo, CGTN.
Well, I'll be standing by to bring you more news, but for now, let's take a look at what's happening in the world of business with Rama.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Here's what's coming up in business news. Nigeria's largest carrier, Air Peace, is set to recall pilots laid off in the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. And gold prices begin to tumble after last week's historic rally, which took it above $2,000 an ounce.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Right, then let's start in aviation, specifically in Nigeria. The management of Air Peace Airlines over Nigeria says it has agreed to recall a sizable number of the 70 pilots who it laid off recently due to the impact of COVID-19 on the aviation industry. That decision was arrived at after an intervention meeting called by Nigeria's aviation minister, Senator Hadi Sirika, between the airline management and the leadership of the National Association of Airline Pilots and Engineers. The Aviation Ministry in Nigeria says they have reached a verbal agreement with Air Peace to recall the maximum number of pilots that the airline can accommodate without going under. It's also calling for understanding of the unions over the prevailing situation in the aviation industry. Now, after hitting almost $2,090 an ounce, gold has fallen back to just over the $1,900 level. Prices fell by over 5% on Tuesday to around $1,927 an ounce in the worst single-day rout in 7 years. Now, analysts did peg the decline to rising U.S. real yields, especially on the bond market, and optimism surrounding vaccine options for COVID-19. The dollar has also been strengthening a fair bit, which is bad news for gold. It tends to mean that the precious metal will be a lot more expensive for those holding other currencies. Silver also joined the slide earlier on Wednesday, falling by 2.8% to about $24.11 an ounce after a 15% slump in the previous session. On to North Africa, Tunisia's Prime Minister-designate Hisham Mechichi says that he will form a purely technocratic government with no political party representation. Now, his decision will likely put him in direct confrontation with the Ennahda party. That's the largest single political grouping in Tunisia's parliament. He defended his decision, however, saying that the government plans to focus on fixing the North African state's beleaguered economy.
According to my consideration, the most suitable formula is that it should be a government of competence, completely independent, that its members meet the conditions of transparency, readiness to work, and integrity. Necessity, responsibility, and patriotic duty oblige us today to form a government of social and economic concreteness. Its center of interest is the citizen, and its priority is to present the citizen with urgent solutions that cannot wait.
Now, as lockdown restrictions do gradually ease over in China, airlines are offering special deals designed to get passengers flying once again, particularly business travelers. Some experts in the sector believe that these discount packages may shore up market confidence.
Briefcase, suits, and leather shoes. It's 8 in the morning, and plenty of business travelers are hurrying on their journeys at Shanghai's Hongqiao International Airport. Many say they've resumed business trips only recently.
This is my second business trip since the outbreak. Our company just resumed business travel this month. We went to Shanxi last week, and now we are heading to Shanxi. In the past, we usually travel 2 or 3 times a month. Now, it's gotten back to normal.
This is my third business trip since the outbreak. I'm headed to Beijing. Our company resumed business trips 2 months ago, but the frequency is down by more than 50%. Before the outbreak, I usually traveled once or twice a week, but now it's just once a month.
Hongqiao has handled about 87,000 passengers a day since the start of July. about 80% of its previous average passenger load. To keep the business passengers coming, China Eastern has just launched a weekday flight pass, allowing purchasers unlimited flights at any time before 8 a.m. or after 8 p.m. on weekdays to any destination on the Chinese mainland within 6 months. That follows the airline's weekend deals announced in June, which were aimed primarily at leisure travelers.
Weekday flight pass is more appealing to business travelers who fly more frequently than leisure travelers. However, companies may adopt a more cautious budgetary plan for travel. So weekday flight pass is not likely to duplicate the buzzes when previously weekend flight pass was launched.
Multiple carriers have been offering fare discounts to get passengers in seats since June. China Eastern Airlines, Spring Airlines, Hainan Airlines, and China Express Airlines have all launched travel packages with no limits on travel frequency. How much longer will the airlines keep this up? After all, the 100,000 leisure travel packages offered by China Eastern Airlines were sold out within 12 days, and 65,000 flights were booked on the first weekend. The website and app of Hainan Airlines were crippled due to panic buying of that carrier's package.
Selling flight passes can generate revenue, although it is not comparable to the cases when airlines operated at full capacity. Inflow is much better than nothing. Recovery of airline businesses depends on how the overall travel market recovers, but selling flight tickets to consumers is more about boosting market confidence than about revenue generation.
From all the special travel packages being sold, it would seem that market confidence is very much returning. But how long would it be before normal airfares and normal booking times resume? No one's talking about that yet. Zhang Shishen, ICS for CGTN, Shanghai.
Over in the United States, there are growing concerns about the continued viability of food supply chains. Now, these worries come as the COVID-19 pandemic does continue to keep many businesses closed. One area that was deeply affected, and still is the meat supply chain, which saw the price of some livestock fall well below the cost of production. Here's CGTN's Dan Williams taking up that story.
This hog farm in southern Michigan is a major operation. Each week, some 1,000 pigs are born here. But the COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact. The virus led to the suspension of operations at meat processing plants. That choke on the supply chain saw farmers like Paul Pridgeon struggling to work out what to do with their livestock.
I'm limited on my physical space. We are full because I want to have my barns utilized. It makes for a crunch.
The backup is only part of the story. Restaurants across the country were forced to close due to lockdown restrictions. Processing plants were unable to pivot to that change in demand and repackage produce for household consumers.
The consumers were worried that we're not going to have enough food in the country, and the farmers are saying we have it, we just have to figure out how to get it to you. And in the meantime, prices are going up in the grocery store because supply is down, and prices are going down for farmers because our supply is backed up.
Ernie Birschmeyer is a livestock and dairy specialist at the Michigan Farm Bureau.
The overall economic impact is going to be incredible when we really get down to the bottom line. There were times during the pandemic where some of our beef cattle operators were losing $100 to $200 per head on their beef cattle. In our pork industry, we were losing $75 a head. So the economic impact was real.
From the processing plants to the farmhouse, the impact of COVID-19 on the various agricultural sectors here in Michigan has been significant. And with the path ahead still unpredictable, farmers here say more needs to be done in order to protect their livelihoods.
Following the various international trade dispute impacts, some $28 billion was paid over the last 2 years to farmers in federal aid packages. A further payment to farmers is expected this year to help them through the pandemic.
Will I need another one? I hope not. I don't want to make money off a pandemic. I don't want to make money off of a trade war. But if those kinds of things are hurting the American farmer, how do we help Band-Aid us through it so that we can continue to do what we do?
The threat of further virus-related shutdowns across the United States and the potential for supply chain disruption adds yet more pressure. But Pridgeon says he, like most farmers, are optimists.
I'm a 7th generation hog farmer. We've had bad years, but where else do we go? What else do we do? I can't imagine life not on this farm.
Dan Williams for CGTN, Montgomery, Michigan.
And I'll leave you there for the time being. Ahead on Global Business, however, we'll be looking at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. It's unveiled its first ever Africa Price Watch platform. What exactly is that and what problem is it going to solve? I'll have some answers for you live from Addis Ababa right here at 1800 GMT. See you then. For now, back to Hannah.
We'll see you later, Raman. Thank you so much. Well, it's now time for us to take a short break. When we return, here's what you can expect. In our continuing series, Made in Africa, we'll look at shea butter, seen as a magical ingredient in skincare and cosmetic products. Shea butter is considered as a magical ingredient in skincare and cosmetic products. It is also used in the confectionery industry for formulation purposes. The fruit of the shea tree has long been considered sacred by many in West Africa because of its countless health benefits. But now, as the demand is growing worldwide for shea, it is helping improve lives in some of the world's poorest communities. Around 16 million people in Africa, particularly women living in rural areas, are supported by the shea industry. Let's take a look.
This is shea butter, a pure, creamy goodness which has been protecting women's skin for generations. It's also a daily staple for cooking in West Africa. To extract shea butter, this nut has to go through a 15-step process. So how does this turn into this? We journeyed to northern Ghana to solve this nutritious mystery.
Nama chang shukurma ba ya pa nam bazani ni la kihma kale ka to dwam manama ka bi dwat za pale de so kihma bi dwat ma pale ka te za pilgo le tumna den non shama kar ta non bandirgo ba bi to yete Mala yum to so point. Tell people, there's no yum to him. Yo, Samara, Afan, Rakati. The Matensia Shelomasa, Rangela Tans, the Catapira. Tampir, Madam Cataman, Dama Lihirate. Darjere, Dariella come in Lihirate. I'll look at it by the Basa Shishi Bobo. Yela Zalsum, Zantamanamo, New Yomaza, Damatin Shiamo, Zuazaha, came out by him with the Katishiama. And I like Yella to take. So tell the Pankar and Mutate. The man soon to no Karana fan, Masu telling Yella. I just saw a couple of Pamo. Kadira, Marasa Harman to Bukatamba. Mala Lasarata. I can't remember a wall with Sun. Dama, Tim Yella and Wally. Nim for you not to appear Palensata, the bad name. The Biela so come no to my son. Young while among quarter. Don't come up and punish a woman. It's on to jelly, and run to jelly. Got the one, the woman. Got a zang down on the name. Valley in ante yelly, not into jelly. Got a cool. Ka iron ja, Kazan no 12. Ja, America ya. I ain't that and Peter's in Tora, in Carigera, Kazan to no drone. In Chim. Now she reach young manega. And then yam. Wala kata dira dama bannin ya fa ka san ta tuso Mari nyanga maka sang tete soma. De wata bandi en beni en jia. Katunu tuchel ma. Di dia te gbasani. Ma te gbatu otum. De me ne kan ma. Tun sang ma tete ba. Kanang no wahala. Nang bor nang bandira. Be yala yi kana denin yele. Den kab yen sang. Eso for son de par masani. Vien yala de par masani. Be bo vien yala ngang ba bo be yira na ma na bihma. Kab tin nang ba fa nda shi. Sambe samba, sambe samba. Yakene bane. Sambe samba, sambe samba.
I'm Zakaria Adam Lasira. I work with Yumza Women's Association. We are basically into shea butter production. We use shea nuts to produce it into shea butter. We have about 225 women who are into the production. So what we do is immediately you come in and you are given the shea nuts, you are supposed to pick out all bad nuts. Then after picking out the bad nuts, you then roast, where we have roasters and some of the women are even roasting. After this stage, you send it into the milling room for milling. Then it is being milled into a paste form. Then after milling, you go into kneading. We produce handcrafted butter. After kneading, you get your fat emulsion, then you send it back to your stoves to boil, where you now separate the oil from the waste. After the boiling, you are supposed to filter. After this stage, we stir it till it solidifies. And after solidification, we package it into containers the buyers prefer. Really, to stay in communities like this is very difficult, where women are left to struggle on their own. So coming up as a growing child, it wasn't easy for me. When I first came to this community, most of the women, the children in the community weren't going to school because normally men say it's not important for one to educate a girl child. But after the women joining the group, they saw that it's very necessary for them to send all their girl children to school. So currently, I'll say this particular group have helped a lot of women, and all the girl child in the community are all back to school. So I'll say what I was looking for, I have achieved part of it.
It is estimated that over 90% of shea goes into the confectionery and bakery industry. So within this industry, shea is used mainly for formulation purposes in improving the quality of formulations. In Europe, for instance, where regulations allow, shea is used as a cocoa butter equivalent for chocolate and is believed to increase the shelf life and also the formulation quality. 10% of the remaining goes into the cosmetic industry. So in the cosmetic industry, shea is favored for its high moisturizing quality as well as its anti-aging and anti-inflammatory qualities, which mainly is used in the personal care industry for body lotions, soaps, and other purposes, but mainly for the personal care industry.
We're taking a break now. Your sport action comes after. Here's what you can expect. Kenyan boxer Nick Okoth targets gold in Japan next year.